Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bankstead. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hello, everyone. Is Patty Vasquez there? Have we successfully hijacked your radio station yet? We haven't.
Hi, our friends from Minocqua Brewing Company. Take it away, Kirk Bankstead, and introduce folks to today's show.
All right. Thanks, Patty, for letting us hijack your radio station again. Patty Vasquez, of course, for those of you not in Chicago, is at WCPT 820 for the Patty Vasquez Show. We hornswoggle our way into her weekly show, our daily show, one hour every week. So thanks, Patty, for letting us in. We got Ben Cominos from Outside the Box, WHBY in Appleton. We've had John Shelton, who's the president of the American Federation of Teachers in Wisconsin. And we've got Senator Chris Larson, who is hailing from the Milwaukee area and who he's my guy in the Senate, not because we have any relationship other than the fact that I agree with most of what he says. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
All right. So today I wanted to talk about a couple things. First, the premise of today's show is that the Trump regime would not be doing what they're doing if they actually cared about the election in next November. And I'll tell you, why that is. And so we're going to talk about why he's killing the MAGA base right now. We're going to talk about what's being planned to upend or hijack our elections in November. And then we're going to talk about what do we do if our elections are hijacked in November. And that leads us to what I've been beating the drum onto for a long time. And that's some sort of a strike, because that's the only nonviolent way to stop a regime if we don't have free and fair elections. So first of all, I just wanted to kind of lay out kind of the reasons why I think Trump is not caring. I called it maniacal hubris when I wrote my piece on Sunday. So his tariffs kind of, crushed rural MAGA farmers. So his rural MAGA base has been hurt dramatically by what he's done. The terror in ICE in cities has wiped out all the gains that he made with Latino voters. I mean, they're never going to vote for a Republican again after this. Epstein has destroyed this like Joe Rogan manosphere where they kept on beating the drum. The whole like MAGA talk show world was beating the drum about the Epstein files for the entire campaign. And now it's completely obvious that these guys are covering that up. So he's completely like cut his MAGA support base off, in the kind of the blogosphere. And then we got the Iran war, which is infuriating all these America First isolationists, which is what he promised, and the reason so many of them backed him when Trump was running. And obviously this recession, which we're seeing in horrible jobs numbers, that is all the people that have been manipulated by Trump are those that are generally low information voters who might not care, but they care about their pocketbooks. They care about the price of affordability, and they're getting crushed right now as well. So how could any regime that plans on holding on to power, and by holding on to power, I mean, you have to get a majority in Congress to hold on to power, or else they can defang you. How would any regime be doing all of this to all of their base all at once if they actually cared about the results of the election next November? Patty, what do you think about this premise?
Yeah, I think that killing our spirits certainly seems to have a big impact. That's what I'm talking to listeners every single day, and it's so hard to get a handle on one news story, right? The things that are impacting our lives directly, and the energy that they spent screaming about. I mean, even the January Sixers were all, from what I understand, revved up because of the Epstein files, the hammering away at that, all the things that they screamed about. Like I was just talking to a professor earlier today about the anti-Asian sentiment that it rose again, reared its ugly head during COVID-19, and it's like there are folks who are easily manipulated by fear and anger. And they do that successfully over and over and over again. I mean, studying history, you can see it. For me, not in my lifetime, but not when I can remember it. But Nixon did this, Reagan did this, the Bushes both did this, and now it's culminated where we're at the tipping point of a world war and all the things that they were screaming about, and including no new wars. Why are you making me scream now, Kirk? I mean, I do think that there is, and he joked about it, didn't he? Didn't he joke? I just got to start a war. I guess I should just start a war so we don't have elections. He joked about that several times last year. I think even before the election. Remember when he said you only have to vote one more time? I mean, every accusation is a confession when it comes to voter fraud. We see that he's confiscating more materials from Arizona without any proof that there was fraud. But you're making me yell, Kirk, and I don't want to make this a yelling podcast.
Ben, what do you think about the theory that these guys are acting with malignant hubris because they already know that they're not going to have to be accountable in the elections in November?
Well, there's a pretty interesting situation in our own state here, Kirk, with Tom Tiffany currently running on the Republican side as essentially an unopposed candidate for governor. And based on the last Marquette polling, he barely had 33%, and he's running unopposed. 66% of people said, well, maybe a second person might join, and let's wait before we commit to anything before then. Yet when you see Tom Tiffany going out there, what's it about? It's about men and women's restrooms and nothing that actually matters to people working at the farm, people trying to buy a house, people struggling with medical debt, whatever the situation is. I don't know if it's malignant hubris. I don't know if it's abject stupidity. I don't know if it is a belief that no matter what you do to the MAGA voter base, a large contingent of them isn't going anywhere. And how valid is that belief? There's no way to know exactly what the game plan is here, but all signs are pointing. And with every day this war in Iran ticks on, most recent polling I saw says the Democrats have a 46% chance at winning the Senate. That didn't even feel like it was in play. So there's clearly some kind of other strategy. Is it declare a state of emergency because of a pointless war of choice in Iran? Is it just straight up put ICE everywhere and try and dictate how many people are going to get through the polling places? I'm not a fortune teller, but if there isn't some kind of stealing plan, I don't know what the strategy is, because it certainly doesn't feel like there is one.
John, I'm sure you talk about this with a lot of your members, and you're just as scared as the rest of us. What do you think is possibly the plan for holding on to power if it isn't messing with our elections in 2026?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I think it's entirely plausible that this administration is just understanding. I mean, like, Trump is living potentially in some kind of delusional state where he thinks, people like him more than they do and they approve of this, right? Because he says things that are patently untrue. And the thing that I think that's really starting to hit people is on the economy front, right? And it's been unsustainable for a really long time. Gas prices are now going up with the Iran war, and that's going to allow people. Again, I think you hit on this in the very beginning, or Ben did. That when people start feeling this in their pocketbooks, even people that don't pay a lot of attention to politics are going to draw those lines, right? And so, I think it's quite possible that people around Trump realize this, and essentially what they're doing. It's kind of a win-win scenario for them, right? Because if there are elections and Republicans are suddenly held more accountable, they can still spend the next 6 months messing things up and stealing as much as possible. I mean, keep in mind that many of these people, especially the Trump, they're doing this to enrich themselves too, right? There's that going on. And so if there's not a plan to steal, that certainly is something that could evolve. But, the best case scenario is just as Ben said, that they're basically incompetent and trying to like loot as much as they can in the next, 6 months or 7 months until they're actually held accountable.
Chris, chime in, my friend. You're closest to elections because you gotta be involved in them every now and then. What do you think is going to happen in November?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a constant effort moving away from actually appealing to voters, and this is unfortunately true of both sides, right? Ever since Citizens United expedited the role of money in politics, it really is. You see it around the building, even in Madison, of people perking up based off of who shows up and how much money they spend in elections, and those are the people who are paid attention to. And this is even worse on the Republican side. It was Sarah Longwell with The Bulwark was actually on an NPR segment earlier this week where she talked about the first polling, and they did not just polling, but groups where they did group surveys of what the reaction was on the Iran war. And she said, while it's wildly unpopular among voters, it's pretty clear they don't care about voters. They haven't been in a long while. It's about what the people who fund his campaign, the billionaires, care about, and that has been the one consistent thing, the one consistent group he refuses to upset. So what would they do? Well, these are the same folks who own the media right now and are buying up CBS and are buying up Warner Brothers, and so a lot of these people don't even realize how bad it is. So I think they're going to do all of the worst parts. Inherent to the question, right, is that they know that voters know all this stuff is happening. And I can tell you, I was on a committee today where I tried to outline the fraud of the Republican administration, and I had senators respond, I support everything that this administration does, full stop. I think they're doing great at fighting fraud. So they live in another universe from us.
On purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And
did they see how much Hegseth was spending on ribeye steaks and salmon and lobster tail? And they think this administration's doing a great job about fraud? Fruit basket steak. I'm sorry. Don't make me know.
Patty, they were going after the SNAP benefits, food share. They were trying to do the micro scrutiny, and literally nobody has heard anything about what you're talking about. They looked at me like I was wearing a tinfoil hat.
Wow.
All right. So, we talked about, there's whether the electorate, the MAGA is just so out there in a silo. I don't think that's the case. The reason I don't think that's the case is the reasons we're going to get into in the next segment when we talk about these meetings that are happening with high-powered people who are highly funded all across the country to role play what either we need to do. Either Trump needs to call a state of emergency and kind of suspend elections or take them over, or they need to cause so much chaos that that these election results are shoved to state legislatures, who by and large are controlled by Republicans. So that's coming up next.
And that's coming up next on the Up North podcast. Go to MonacroBrewingCompany.com to support the work that we do. More in a moment on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. Thank you for being here, Minneapolis and Seattle.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive beer. The Monaco Brewing Company sells Progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive beer, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. That's thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Brewing Company, who sells Progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MonaccoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MonaccoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Monaco Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MonaccoMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MonaccoMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
And we are back with the Up North podcast. Forgot to give them a heads up that we're 10 seconds away. Sorry. Hi.
Hey, Patty, thanks for letting us back in again and hijack your show and talk about Wisconsin politics as it makes a difference with American politics and even Illinois politics. So what we're doing here today is we're talking about what might happen and what we need to do and how we need to prepare for if our elections are hijacked or stolen or made chaotic in November. And so the second segment, I want to talk about something that's completely it's happening in America, but it's got a unique Wisconsin story to it. So if you all remember, let me start with this. So if you're not reading Chris Armitage and Substack and you're not subscribed to ProPublica, you need to be doing both. ProPublica came out with an article recently that said that there's a lot of backdoor meetings right now happening with bigwigs to encourage to kind of like role play what it's going to take to steal our election and what it's going to take to and the two ideas are there's some sort of emergency, be it caused by ICE and immigrants, or be it caused by the Iran war, or some other crazy thing that has yet to be unleashed upon us, causes Trump to call a state of emergency and potentially suspend our elections or delay them or something like that. The other strategy, which was the strategy used in 2020, which was to say that there is so much election malfeasance happening in the states that matter. And remind you, in order to overturn the House, there's only about 17 House districts or so in America that are in play right now. So causing chaos in those districts are really all you need to do to potentially mess with the majority or the future Democratic majority, which is seemingly bound to happen at this point in the House of Representatives. The second idea there, it was to cause enough chaos in those elections to throw it into the courts. And a lot of the state constitutions have a second kind of part of their constitution that says if the elections are messed up, then you put it into the state legislature and they hash it out in the state legislature. Of course, the state legislature in Wisconsin and many of the swing states are Republican. And not Democrat. And so that's a very dangerous outcome as well, just to create enough chaos that the state legislators throws it to them. So those are the things being talked about. Now, the reason it comes back to Wisconsin is that there is a woman named Cleta Mitchell who is leading all of this stuff. And so Cleta Mitchell was made famous because she was on the phone while Donald Trump called Raffensperger in Georgia, that famous call that said we need to find 11,000 more votes. Cleta Mitchell, he said, Cleta, like in quotes, Cleta, don't we need Raffensperger to find 11,000 more votes? So after that call was made public, Foley and Lardner, which is one of the largest law firms in Wisconsin, they fired Cleta Mitchell from being a partner at their law firm. And Cleta Mitchell's in D.C., in the Foley and Lardner office of D.C., but it's a Wisconsin law firm. So they fired her because they knew that was really bad, what she did. So Cleta Mitchell is also on the board of the Bradley Foundation, which is the biggest funder of voter suppression tactics, probably in America, but definitely in Wisconsin. Let me talk a little bit about Cleta Mitchell, a little bit about the Bradley Foundation. By the way, we've been doing this research since Trump got elected because a part of what resistance planning is to power map. And power mapping is who are the people most likely to screw with America, screw with democracy. And the Bradley Foundation always ranks right up there in the state of Wisconsin. So who is Cleta Mitchell? She runs the Election Integrity Network through the Conservative Partnership CPI, and they trained thousands of poll workers and election workers in swing states. They're training people who believe that the election was stolen from Trump, so that they're activists and they're deranged. I mean, they've been misled, but they're training these people to flood poll watching and become election workers, which is dangerous in and of itself. So that's the EIN, the Election Integrity Network, and so they're filling state houses and filling precincts throughout swing states. Now, she is funded. The Election Integrity Network is funded by the Bradley Foundation, and this EIN is under the auspices of the Virginia Institute for Public Policy, which is getting millions of dollars from the Bradley Foundation. The Bradley Foundation also sent $325,000 to the Council for National Policy, which is the same body where Cleta Mitchell, after the 2020 election, helped draft action steps urging state lawmakers to change election results and appoint alternative Trump electors. So one of the things that Cleta Mitchell did was help come up with the strategy to have fraudulent electors vote in both Michigan and Wisconsin, to throw things into a chaotic state so that it could get turned to state legislature, Republican-led state legislatures. Lastly, Wisconsin is definitely a target because another organization that is chaired by Cleta Mitchell, funded by the Bradley Foundation, is called the Public Interest Legal Foundation, and they're out of Indiana. And they filed a 2024 lawsuit in Wisconsin to gain access to voter registration as part of a very big collective voter roll purge campaign. So it is clear that Cleta Mitchell from Wisconsin and the Bradley Foundation from Wisconsin are working really hard to hijack our elections in the fall. So Senator Chris Larson, one of the things that Chris Armitage, who I follow on Substack, he's very aggressive. And he keeps on beating the drum on states have powers to stop the federal government from rolling over our rights. And he said one of the most important jobs at the state level is the attorney general. And he suggested that attorney generals should be preemptively suing anybody that is talking behind the scenes about doing things that are going to conspiring to mess with our elections. So in Wisconsin, we have Attorney General Josh Kaul, who I needed you to talk about this because nobody's going to even listen to me anymore, because I've been beating against this guy for the last 5 years because I don't think he's done it ever since January 6th. He's just been sitting on his thumbs. So do you think if you were the Attorney General, would you preemptively sue these folks for trying to hijack our elections in the fall?
I would say, look, it's a yes and approach, right? I think that everything that you've laid out absolutely is true, that we have had the Bradley Foundation that has been going after democracy in one form or another for decades. It's a model that they try to expand across the country. And so while democracy has a birthplace here in the state under Fighting Bob La Follette and progressive politics, the anti-democracy group also has roots here in the Bradley Foundation and on the E-lines. They were funding billboards to confuse voters. They have been part of the effort to kick voters off of voter rolls right before elections happen. And they have been putting out false information. They've put things out to try and dissuade people from voting by absentee. They have funded the group that ends up pushing against voting rights and is very anti-democratic at the Capitol. So yes, all of these things, is especially if the things that Cleta is doing is illegal, then yes, absolutely, Josh Kaul should be doing things. And I know that he is as frustrated as you are with him. He's more in touch with what's going on across the country than I think most. And so the real effort is trying to push the public on this too. So yes, pushing our Attorney General Josh Kaul, but we do have to expand rely on Law Forward to understand this and make sure that they are ready within the state, who does a lot of good work. But then, of course, the background work of always informing friends, colleagues, and others, even Republican voters, as to what's going on here. As for now, we still live in a democracy, and they respond to what the public demands. And I would argue most people in the public, they still think that there's guardrails on, right? They still think that those guardrails are there, and we have to let them know that they're gone.
We are broadcasting the Up North podcast. Right now, we have with us Chris Larson, Senator Chris Larson from Wisconsin, John Shelton, American Federation of Teachers President, Wisconsin chapter, Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box on WHBY, and of course, our fearless leader, Kirk Banks said, go to MonacleBrewingCompany.com. We'll be right back with more on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Monaco Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MonacleMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MonacleMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacleMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Monaco Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MonacleMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MonacleMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacleMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. Zero alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.monaclebrewingcompany.com. That's thc.monaclebrewingcompany.com. The Monaco Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MonacleMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MonacleMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Monaco Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MonacleMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MonacleMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacleMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Times when we were coming back, first I'm like, it's 40, now it's 40, now it's 5. Here we are with the Up North podcast. Take it away, Kirk Bangstead.
Okay, so throughout the last half hour, we were talking about how the Trump regime is acting with, I use the term maniacal hubris, in that they seem to be eviscerating the base, the MAGA base that helped elect him in the first place. And I would argue that, you know, if they're eviscerating their base, and they still want to hold on to power through free and fair elections, it doesn't make any sense. And so I believe that they think that they're going to hold on to power no matter if they win elections or not, because they're going to mess with our elections. So we talked about why, who's backing that and who's doing that in the last segment, which involves Cleta Mitchell and the Bradley Foundation in Wisconsin. In this segment, I want to talk about the fact that if they mess with elections, and if we need to prepare for the fact that our elections might not take place. John Shelton, Simon Rosenblum Larson, and Senator Larson and I have talked about it a lot. The only way that we know of that when we read the history of regime change or authoritarianism, the only way that we know outside of elections to stop things like this from happening to us, or in a non-violent way, or to strike and to bring the economy down until we can affect regime change. So a general strike, I'm beating the drum that we need to talk about it again and we need to bring it up again because we need to start organizing as if we may not have elections next November. So in that regard, John talks a lot about structure tests, and I'm going to quickly talk about what happened in Minneapolis. And I'm going to ask John what's going on currently with the strike conversation. So, in Minneapolis, or last January, what they did effectively was a one-day strike, and a one-day strike is less commitment than a multi-day strike because you might not lose your job and you might not lose your income, and it's called a structure test. And so what they did is the SEIU Local 26 with a bunch of other unions. They had 100,000 marchers. They had 700 businesses that closed. It was a day of no work, no shopping, and no school. And it's the beginning of sustained national pressure that ultimately forced the administration to partially retreat. Because soon after that, Tom Holman, the other guy was canned. The short little guy was canned, but Tom Holman announced the withdrawal of 700 federal agents, ICE agents, and it seemingly that structure test was enough to shake the administration and to make the ICE agents leave. That's the type of thing that needs to be done over and over and over again, and build towards an actual general strike if we lose our elections. So that's kind of the lead in. So, John, what is happening at the national picture, and what is happening in Wisconsin with this May Day Strong kind of movement and structure tests for a general strike?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say, Kirk, I'm glad I got this question instead of the legal question. I'm glad Chris got that one because he's better suited for that than I am. But the question we were dealing with at the outset about whether there's a plan to steal the election or not, in some ways, we should be prepared for that. But what the answer to that is right now isn't really relevant, right? What's important about that is that we should be preparing as if that's happening. And if it unfolds that way, we'll be prepared. And if it doesn't unfold that way, we'll be prepared to still use this movement to mobilize workers and build, the kind of movement that will disrupt the power of billionaires anyway. So May 1st, which for those of you who don't know, is a really important day in the history of workers in this country and internationally. There was a series of general strikes actually in cities like Chicago and Milwaukee and many other places in May 1st, 1886, that ended up with a lot of repression of those strikes. And ultimately, in the short term, they failed, but in the long term, they helped catalyze big picture movements for workers to change things. And so it's fitting that this happened on May 1st. There's a conversation that's happening at the national level. And I think people have been inspired by what happened in Minneapolis because that was a win. That showed that organizing works. And, you and I have talked about this a lot, Kirk. You actually turned me on to Erica Chenoweth's work, where she basically shows empirically that when you get 3% of the people out on the streets shutting things down, that's often enough to topple an authoritarian regime. So nationally, this is happening. It's the May Day Strong Coalition, which you mentioned. There are some unions at the national level, like the National Education Association and National Nurses Union, Association of Flight Attendants that have signed on, some local unions like the Chicago Teachers Union, obviously SEIU Local 26, the one you mentioned in Minneapolis. And recently, Sarah Nelson, who is the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, and just an all-around kind of inspirational labor figure. I've met her a couple of times. She recently had a convening by Zoom with like 1,000 people. So it's really exciting. At our union, American Federation of Teachers, are having some conversations about this at the national level. But I would encourage people to get involved. As the premise of this question suggests. But really thinking about May 1st and a walkout, it would be don't shop, don't work, just as they did in Minneapolis. You could imagine entire cities kind of getting on board with this. But as another structure test toward November, what happens if Trump decides to go that route and try to invoke some national emergency? Then we've already got the framework in place with this May 1st movement to then magnify that exponentially. And so I believe we can put this in the chat or where somebody can see it. But there's this May Day Strong Coalition is running these solidarity schools in cities across the country where you can sign up and sign on and participate. But this is big picture stuff, and it's important for people to remember that we hold all the power in this economy. The people that do the work and the people that buy everything, we have all the power. This is what the billionaires and the millionaire classes and all the bosses are going to respond to, and this is how we win.
Got it. Thanks, John, for the overview. Quickly, for everybody listening in Wisconsin, we don't have the QR code that says to sign up. I believe it's next Saturday. There's like an all afternoon kind of solidarity school. There was a QR code, but we do have the website where I'm sure you can find that information. It's the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition.com. We've got it here on the screen, and you can go and sign up to learn about how to do structure tests, how to build support and build power for a general strike. And that's happening in Madison next Saturday. And you can get more details by going to the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition. Okay, now, Ben, there's another thing coming up in March that is huge, and it's the third round of No Kings. So there's going to be a huge rally on March 28th. And obviously, John just said that, Professor Erica Chenoweth said if there's this 3% threshold of people protesting in the streets, you can get regime change. I hope that's the case, but I think it takes more than protesting. So I argued in my piece on Sunday that, I think it's a huge missed opportunity if we don't try to do some more organizing towards a general strike on this No Kings March and rally on the 28th. What do you think, Ben? Tell us a little bit more make sure everybody knows about No Kings, because we got it. We can't miss that. And then tell us your opinion on that question.
Well, if anyone needs to be prepared about it, it's the people setting it up in Appleton who missed their deadline. It's going to be this crazy cluster on the 28th, which is going to be very interesting. I don't know if you guys have been following along with that, but it's going to be interesting. But nevertheless, I'll be honest, I was getting ready to do this segment as my normal pessimistic self, but John Shelton, that teacher over there, has me so motivated with what he was talking about, with what took place in Minneapolis. There is a frustration right now, and to me, it's fairly evident with the lack of protesting, in my opinion, towards the war in Iran right now compared to what took place in the mid-2000s. I think there is a discontent with the idea of protesting for the sake of protesting. They feel like it doesn't get the outcomes that you're looking for. It doesn't drive the kind of change that you're looking for. It's an interesting take to look at this from the perspective of a general strike here, because I think we're going to have to call a spade to a certain extent. Don't get me wrong. Independents have bailed on this guy. Liberals were obviously never on board. Progressives, neither. But this is going to be viewed as a partisan effort here. I think there's no way around that. And oftentimes when general strikes are the most effective is when it's collective. So I think it's going to be a matter of how do we, as people representative of the left, or at least the center left, kind of reach out to those independent people who maybe abstain from politics, don't take it as seriously as a lot of us do, get them involved in this process, actually convince them maybe if you don't take part in this, your livelihood is going to matter. Like, I genuinely believe my younger brother does not know the vice president's name. I've never asked him, but I feel like if I did, that's how apathetic he is. But you know what? When he calls me last week, he says, "What happened that my gas is this expensive?" And then I got to hold his hand and walk him through it. And someone who has no idea what's going on in the political realm all of a sudden does care. So the general strike, organizing around a general strike, is an interesting take. I think you're going to have to try and find people outside of the people who live and breathe this stuff, like the 5 people and probably every single person listening to this right now probably ultimately do.
Chris, you got a minute. Tell us, do we need to do more than rally right now? And do we need to be preparing for a general strike?
Need to make friends. I mean, I think that's the biggest one, is go out there, make friends, and let them know what is going on with this, because we have convinced ourselves in our echo chamber. The people who pay closest attention know this, but it is on-ramping and getting people to walk into not only what Trump has done that's bad, and unless you are a billionaire, a white supremacist, or an extreme nationalist Christian, he is not looking out for you. And I think demonstrating that is the first half of the bridge. The other half, of course, is to make sure that they understand that there's something on the other side of the bridge for them, of who's actually fighting for them. So it takes some effort to decode them and make sure that, look, healthcare is not something that should be subject to a coin flip. You do deserve time off. You do deserve retirement. You do deserve the chance to relax, right? And so demonstrating, one, that they are not good for you, and that the other side, that there is better possible, is going to be needed to grow the population of 3% of people who figured this out. We're getting there. They're doing the work for us with $4 gas. You just have to point out why that is, or they'll blame it on immigrants like they always do.
We are continuing the Up North podcast in just a moment on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. We are joined by Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box, John Shelton, president of the American Federation of Teachers Wisconsin chapter, Senator Chris Larson of Wisconsin, and of course our fearless leader, Kirk Bangster from Minocqua Brewing Company. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. More in a moment.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive Beer. The Manosphere Brewing Company sells Progressive Beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive Beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells Progressive Beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our Progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
I've got to stop being distracted. Hi, everybody. We're back with the Up North podcast. I'm doing too many things at once during the break. Okay, focus on the Up North podcast. Joining us, of course, again, is our fearless leader, Kirk Bangster. Take it away, sir.
Okay, so throughout the course of this show, we've kind of laid out the rationale for why we think that Trump's going to try to hijack, steal, cause chaos, make our elections fall apart in November. We've made the case that we have to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. We hope for the best by making sure we get out to vote like crazy next November and building power to do that. But we plan for the worst by actually organizing to potentially strike in a massive way if our elections don't take place somehow in November. So in this segment, I want to talk about what people can start doing right now to kind of push the envelope on that discussion on what striking is and how to build power for striking. So first of all, I talked about a bunch of these things in my essay on Sunday, and I didn't want to put this on anybody else because this is a little bit esoteric. So these are the more esoteric ones that everybody should be doing. And then I want to go down to things that you can do like tomorrow. So first of all, retired Army Colonel George Mason, we're supporting him 100%. He is recruiting volunteers, retired veterans to be poll watchers for the election. And there's an email address there, WCOS6 at Wisconsin Committee of Safety 6 at yahoo.com. George, they've got a 501c4 they just formulated today. They've got a board that's all retired vets that are going to poll watch in the places that are most likely to be screwed with by Trump in Wisconsin and in the Midwest. The second thing that I want to ask everybody to do is to start putting pressure on in Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers and Attorney General Josh Kaul. In other places, Pritzker, Walz, their attorney generals. We have power in the states that we need to be using now, and proactively and not reactively. So there is a possibility for states to hold federal tax dollars into escrow and not pay our tax dollars to the federal government unless the elections are certified and fair. This is not my idea. This is Chris Armitage. It's bold. It will be challenged in court no matter what. But what isn't being challenged in court that the Trump administration is doing that's illegal? We need to fight fire with fire and actually threaten the purse of folks, of the federal government purse. That's one thing that we could be telling our governor to do. We could tell our governor to enlist the National Guard now to protect our polling places. If he calls the National Guard up first, it's going to be harder for Trump to call our National Guard to use against us. Third, we need to call our attorney general and tell him and demand that he prosecute Cleta Mitchell and the Bradley Foundation for preliminarily trying to mess with our elections. He can do that. There's no reason that he can't do that. He should be pushing as opposed to just waiting for bad things to happen. And finally, this is for Senator Larson, we could condition state contracts and subsidies on companies not donating to political campaigns or not using their PAC dollars to advocate lies and mistruths, like the elections, being immigrants are voting when they shouldn't be voting, that type of thing. So those are things that we could be doing. We could be calling our governor and attorney general and advocating to be proactive and not reactive. Chris, I know as a politician, you've had to go to many candidate forums and you've taken a lot of phone calls in your day with concerned citizens. What's the effect of that? In terms of changing policy, in terms of changing your mind, and in terms of putting pressure to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the forums, and frankly, I am always surprised at the few number of people who actually turn out and show up and actually ask the questions. And it's just a few people who can end up turning a debate in that case. And if it can be turning up individually as a in person, that's one thing. But it's chiming in on social media, as long as the algorithm isn't super tilted, but just rallying your friends behind a cause. There's different groups that do that. So if people are looking for a guide and they've got their list, the Kirk you already kicked off for them. I think it is going to any of the candidate forums. We have a good one right now for the governor's race, but this includes everyone running for the legislature, because you need everybody, and people running for federal office, and asking what they plan to do to prevent Trump from stealing the next election, which he has broadcast that he plans on doing. Ask very specifically what they plan on doing. What do they plan to do if he succeeds, and what that will look like? You can ask if they've joined the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition, or any resistance coalition, if they've been to protests. And if they haven't, ask them why not. Ask them what their line is in the sand of what it would take for them to really respond to the moment. Because there's a lot of folks who'd rather not talk about it because it's politics. In air quotes, they like to avoid politics. But the reality is this is not just politics as normal, that there's so much under threat. And people are only going to respond if they actually get asked. So asking our side first, but that also includes of reaching out to Republicans too, right? They're trying to consolidate power. They're trying to do all this. So making sure that our federal representatives are not voting to keep things running as normal, pretending that it is, right? Filling vacancies. We're seeing this at the federal level now, a year on, after they had Elon Musk clear out professionals. Suddenly they have a hiring need. They're saying, well, we're short-staffed everywhere. And all these folks have to take ideological pledges. So pushing back on Democrats from not just going along with it. They're starting to hear us. I do think they're starting to hear us. But that does include if you have Republicans in your area, because they have the calculation right now that they can just lay low. There's a good effort actually forced some of the U.S. reps to hold town halls. And I think that is productive. They have gotten away with just being able to point at Trump But this is a cuck Congress, right, where they have let all of their power go and just let him do whatever he wants without anybody pretending that they have any power. And those are the times where he has flinched, when those Republicans start to say, what the heck is going on? That's how Kristi Noem is no longer DHS secretary, right?
Yeah.
It was Senator Kennedy down in Louisiana who asked the question about the $220 million contract. So they do listen. This is the first drop of blood in a long time of Kristi Noem actually responding to public demand. So it does make a difference, and that should motivate all of us.
All right, John, as for the strike conversation, what can people be doing right now? You mentioned a little bit in the previous segment, but what can people be doing right now to kind of join up and organize?
Mike's off.
Oh,
I
John,
do want to, I do want to just say that, some of y'all know I am also a candidate for a local office here in Green Bay. I'm leaving right after this to go to an Indivisible forum that I'm late for. And this actually matters at the local level too. I mean, I've gotten so many questions about what are we going to do locally to prevent ICE from coming to Green Bay? What are we going to do to make sure that things don't happen at the local level in elections? So it matters at every single level. I just want to throw that out there. In terms of what y'all need to do, if you want to get involved right now, is you need to show up, right? You need to show up at No Kings, wherever that is. That's necessary but insufficient, right? Like, just showing up at No Kings isn't going to be enough, but as kind of a structure test for that May Day strike and anything else that comes down the road, like showing up at No Kings is really important. And then, of course, I believe we've got the website, but you can sign up on maydaystrong.org and commit to no work, no school, or no shopping on those days. So those are two actions people can take right now.
All right. Thanks, John. Ben, leave us with your thoughts. Give us some positive thoughts here before Patty wraps us up.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, kudos to everybody in the Wisconsin State Senate and Assembly for trying to get a public option on the record here in Wisconsin. Don't know, I know one talk show host that's been beating that drum for a while, so it's really nice to see that get picked up there. It's absolutely fantastic. And for everybody at home, just as some perspective here, as much as I hate these gambling sites that have turned politics into sport, Chris Taylor right now has a 97% chance of walking away with the seat in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We have Annette Ziegler announcing her retirement, which is the second Republican in as many years retiring from the Supreme Court. And more importantly, both of those Republicans tried to overturn the 2020 election, which to me, with the theme of this being, is the election going to happen? Is Trump going to allow that to happen? Even the people that got a little shady with it the first time around are like, all right, not again, with the writings on the wall. If you are taking it this way, you're going to have to do it with someone other than me. And the people they're putting up there are defenseless right now. There's a very high likelihood, if we stay focused, we're looking at a 6-1 majority in April of 2027. And then whatever they try to do with an alternative slate of voters won't matter as much. So I think it's important to remember that kind of stuff here as we go forward. There's good things happening. Govern well and make sure the bad people don't win. And it's going to be harder to do this come 26 or 28.
That's right. I want to wish everybody, by the way, we want to wish John the very best. And do you want to share anything about how folks can support you, by the way, before we go? Or Chris?
Yeah, you can check out the ActBlue link. Absolutely.
John Shelton, everybody who's listening, maybe not watching, it's John Shelton.
We got to teach you some fundraising, brother.
Yeah. I'll sit down with you on call time if you want. Let's.
You convinced me. I'm donating.
All right, folks. It's been an incredible conversation. And I do want to say, to reiterate, we have to stop letting the fear of worst case scenarios paralyze us, because we've been living worst case scenarios, what we all worried about. And we have to prepare for it. The time to protect an election is before someone tries to take it, when we still have something to fight with. So both things, work your ass off to get out the vote and build the infrastructure to respond if the results get ignored. We can do both, and we have to. So it's not pessimism, it's strategy, folks. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Up North podcast. Senator Chris Larson, John Shelton, the president of the AFT Wisconsin chapter. We've got Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box on WHBY, and they have a fancy little app, so you can download that and listen to him every day. And by the way, we will be at the Madison Tap Room on April 1st, by the way, broadcasting live from there. We're doing like a seance and voodoo dolls. So thank you, Kirk Bankstead, for all your great leadership. By the way, everyone subscribe to our Substack, Monaco Brewing Company. Love you, Lady B. Good night, everybody.
Night.